So I think it's very safe to say that 2024 was by far the worst year for Lucasfilm, period, the end. All because of what went down with the Acolyte series, Leslye Headland and Kathleen Kennedy's damage control and double down mode over the show, and let's not forget about everything related to, of course, what's been going on with all the drama between Lucasfilm and the Walt Disney Company, the ongoing shakeup between the Disney executives and those over at Lucasfilm, and all the back and forth drama happening with all of that. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. Now, as we talked about this a couple of days ago, Leslye Headland was also yet another example of one at Lucasfilm that lost out on a multi-million-dollar deal, all because of really going along with her agenda, Kathleen Kennedy's agenda, and destroying what George Lucas's Star Wars really stood for. Now, at the same exact time, we know that a lot of that also had to do with her having financial conversations with Disney and how that really kind of didn't pan out too well. There was a lot of arguments there, and how she was asking for a massive pay raise, much like others over at Lucasfilm. But what's interesting about this has a lot more to do with what's been going on with Leslye Headland and how she's taking all of those things that have been going on over at Lucasfilm between her multi-million-dollar deal going into, of course, the dirt and everything else related to Kathleen Kennedy, really having, of course, no clue what to do next. Now, interestingly enough, we know that Leslye Headland will never admit failure. She will never admit that her show is worse than The Last Jedi. I think a lot of you guys out there will agree that this show is more damaging than The Last Jedi ever will be. Now, what's interesting about that is that with Lucasfilm already engaging in damage control over the Acolyte, especially after Episode 7 failed to reverse the backlash and only made things worse, one major development now has more to do with Leslye Headland engaging in damage control once again over the Acolyte after losing her multi-million-dollar deal for various Lucasfilm projects that are no longer moving forward. Now, Leslye recently delivered the following. As a damn grown woman who put this thing together right from the beginning after rereading some of the Expanded Universe books from the 90s, I knew that we would be dealing with fans that would believe that you can't consider fans that have shown their true colors of being so afraid of powerful women, both in the film industry and as characters in the Star Wars world. I have noticed this especially with the Acolyte, where you have fans that are obviously frightened of those affiliated with the LGBTQ community. As I said earlier, and it gets frustrating to keep repeating this, but I am unwilling to discuss the Acolyte Season 2. I just have no comment on that right now, and have no reason to really go into details about that. But the Star Wars community has always been littered with a toxic side to it all that I think is always to be expected, especially when you create something of a story that centers on women and a wonderful cast and crew that holds that LGBTQ background. I recently had a lengthy conversation about this with Kathleen Kennedy, and she is very thankful for what I was able to contribute to Star Wars, as she really just wants to increase diversity, equity, and inclusion for other Star Wars projects by other talented creators beyond myself. I also feel it's important to address that it's the same toxic fans that give the studios the wrong impression about how good of a job you are doing with shows like this, such as The Acolyte. The false reviews and critics, I think, really have left a toxic mark on the film industry that is extremely difficult to deal with, and you just can't take reviews seriously anymore. It's something that I urge studios to understand, that feedback can no longer be looked at with film or television, especially after what we saw what happened with The Acolyte and Rotten Tomatoes. Now guys, before I move on about what Leslye Headland is spewing once again about the Acolyte series, this is yet another example of Leslye Headland saying that the reviews are fake, that the reviews cannot be trusted, that all the critics out there, those that have a very big problem with the Acolyte, are to be excluded from the overall viewpoints of the Acolyte series, and how she really went on to say this last week. I don't know if you guys missed it, but she went on to say last week that there's a silent majority of fans that really just love the Acolyte, that welcome the Acolyte in all its glory. And it makes absolutely no sense. I mean, Tatiana Maslany of the She-Hulk series said something very similar, that there's this silent majority, that there's a lot of fans out there that are afraid to speak their mind, to speak their opinion of being ridiculed. And I think it's just ludicrous, because that's basically Leslye Headland's way of saying, let us make whatever we want, and regardless of the critics, let's just continue to keep spewing out garbage. That's really what it boils down to. I think that at the end of the day, Headland doesn't believe a word that she's saying. She knows that the majority of fans absolutely hate the Acolyte series. They want nothing to do with it. They don't want anything to do with episode 8. I think most fans have checked out. They don't care about the finale and what looms tonight on Disney+. But what's interesting about this, moving onward, she continues, I mean, it's just childish behavior to even think about leaving such negative criticism and making others believe that you come from the majority of the fan base. It not only ruins the experience for loyal fans of this franchise, but it also interferes with the creators and their vision and the process that it takes to make such a great story. For far too long, men have held the leading roles, especially in Star Wars, and my mission was to really provide women the limelight over the men, as I felt it was the right transition. I thought it was absolutely necessary to really shift away from Lucas's vision and to provide a different view of the prequels. We did not ruin or destroy any of the lore that fans claim. That's just ridiculous and comes from a false narrative that they tried to create to make their point come across. So, Leslye Headland is saying that there's no canon-breaking moments in The Acolyte, that there are no examples in here that also devalue George Lucas's work or some of the characters that he created. Now look, I pointed this out several times. After what we saw in episode 7, there are obvious examples that devalue some of George Lucas's work. If you even look back at some of the past episodes, there are various examples that really are canon-breaking moments. Now, is this something that's going to bother the regular casual fan? Maybe not, but those that truly understand Star Wars, that follow George Lucas's work, that have read throughout all the books, really understand what Leslye Headland is all about. And for Leslye Headland, by the way, claiming that she read every single Expanded Universe book, the fact that she has made so many different errors, it really just goes to show you that maybe she's either A, lying about reading all of the Expanded Universe books, or everything, of course, is 100% deliberate of destroying George Lucas's work on purpose. Now, interestingly enough, we know that they deny those claims time and time again, that it's never about stripping down George Lucas's philosophy, when in reality, let's be honest guys, it is. We all saw what they did with the Acolyte, with the creation of Osha and May, and also to the point of everything that happened with Ki-Adi-Mundi, right? That's another thing. That's a whole other discussion out there that can really go on and on. But again, we're at the middle point of July now. The Acolyte is finally coming to its conclusion. I would love to hear what everyone has to say about Leslye Headland and her overall attack on the fan base, essentially. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.